G'day Venture Famers. We've had a day out on the reef today. We've caught a mixed bag of fish. Tess is going to put up a picture of that very shortly. So what I'm going to do here is show you how we process our fish. This is the basics of fish filleting. To start with, we need to make sure that we look after everything so that it's edible later on down the track, and we freeze everything properly so we get the best value out of our catch. So we start, we've got good ice in water. While we were out, we always take out bottles of fresh water to wash ourselves with while we've been in the water and wash the salt off. Then we fill a few of them up with some salt water and mix that with ice. So we've got a nice salty ice slurry, so we don't water down our fish fillets and we keep a nice salty flavour to them, better for cooking later. The next important thing is to have nice sharp knives, because as funny as it sounds, a blunt knife is what cuts you because you're trying to force it too hard. If you watch later on, we'll do another how-to on sharpening knives. But for the moment, just say that you should use one. The other thing, when you're starting out, you should look into cut-resistant gloves, just so that you don't damage yourselves. I've been filleting for quite a number of years, so I don't tend to use one, but they are very helpful when you're starting out. So this is a coral trout. It's like most bottom fish, and they're a standard fish to fillet. This is 55 centimetres, somewhere around there. What I tend to do is start off just under the pectoral fin, take a cut down. Now that cut goes in deep all the way to the bone across, and then I take the tip of my knife and run it down the backbone. So that's just a nice long stroke, and then I take it across the tail at the very end and take it out. Then I've turned the fish around. I start back at the tail, I follow that through with a cut. Then open the fillet up and I can see the rib bones, or the top of the backbones. I follow them up. 2 or 3 long strokes until I expose the backbone. Once I hit the backbone, I ride up loosely over the top of the backbone, and then I'll hit the rib bones rising here. Follow the rib bones up. There's actually 2 or 3 little bones in there that we need to take out later on. They become part of the fillet. So you follow the bottom of the backbone, and then we release. Some people tend to keep the belly flap on, but I stop there, take the belly flap off, and that's our fillet. What we usually do is leave the belly flap on and it becomes part of the wings, which is, we'll get to that shortly. So that's one fillet. That'll go skin on into the slurry. We'll generally fillet all the fish first, and then we'll come back and skin them. Okay, so when we go to removing the wings, there's usually, in most fish, there's a little bone that joins from the top of the head that comes down. We need to find that and get up underneath it. And then we'll find there's another bone that comes from the pectoral fin. We need to go up one and down under the other. So follow that. We try and keep the tip light so that we don't bust all the guts. So we just make that incision. That's a set of wings. Now with a lot of fish that have bigger scales, coral trout only have very small scales. We don't tend to scale them. You can just cook them as they are. But fish that have bigger scales, you'll generally scale that, and then we'll peel off all the membrane. We'll give that a scrub inside, and then they lay really nicely on the barbecue. A little bit of chili sauce, barbecue up. So let's try this real time. We do a lot of different things with fish frames. So you can use your fish heads for soup. You can use the whole frame for soup, just take the guts out and then use the rest for stock. What we're going to do now, which we've been doing most of the times recently, is Tessa's mum has got fruit trees in an orchard, and we plant these in the holes before the fruit trees go in, and they're great fertiliser for the fruit trees. So they usually lay them in there for 6 months before they plant a tree, and then that gives the fruit trees a great start to life. This guy's a bit bigger. He's probably closer to 70-75 centimetres for a coral trout. It's what they usually call a strawberry trout. He's a lot pinker. I know it doesn't seem it right now, but when they first come out of the water, bright pink, out of deeper water. When we start spearing, so if you're fishing, it doesn't matter, you're only hooking fish through here, but when you're spearing, because the shaft can go anywhere, we prefer to try and aim for the head, but a lot of times it's bony, so people will go for a body shot, but try and keep it within the head range. So that one's gone in just under his pectoral fin, so it's a good holding shot, gets in behind all the bones and everything, but you've got to be careful. If it goes into the guts below, it's going to tear out pretty fast. But basically that's left all of that fillet nice and intact. So now we're going to take the skin off the fillet. One thing I did forget to mention before was underneath my cutting board, I've got a piece of non-slip material. So that keeps the board in place. If you don't have anything special, just use a tea towel, a little bit damp, put it underneath, it'll stop it from sliding around on the bench. Okay, so I'll turn my cutting board this way. When we were filleting before, we were using a boning knife, so it was semi-flexible, slightly rigid, but short 6-inch blade. For our skinning knife, it's going to be, they're very flexible, about 10-inch long, and we're going to use that. We lay our fillet away from us. We start out on the tail end. We cut to the skin. Make sure that we're only down to the skin. We move the knife and the fillet at the same time in a slight sawing action. So then we turn our fillet over. As I said, with trout and quite a number of other fish, there's a bone line that runs up on the middle of the rib cage. So we need to feel those bones we can see it in the bloodline. It's trail on that middle part of the bloodline, and I can feel them go down to here. So we pick that, we cut down one side, then we cut down the other side. And we take those bones out. We've got friends that take them for cat food. Cats will generally eat around them, or again, they go into the fertiliser. So that is a nice white boneless fillet of coral trout. So the second type of fish that we're going to do are pelagics. This is a sharky mackerel or a salmon mackerel. They're a lesser eating fish than, say, the Spanish mackerel, but if they're eaten fresh, crumbed, they're not bad. Curries, actually, they're quite good in curries. What we're going to do here is show you how to quarter them. So we start off, same principles of filleting. We go down behind the pectoral fin, we take it up into the head, follow the backbone, come back up, nice broad strokes. Okay. Now where this starts to get different is these have lateral bones all the way along the fish. So as we get to the center backbone, we need to rise the knife just above it. You can see in there. And then we're going to take our knife down and cut through all of those lateral bones all the way down the spine. Then we ride straight down the other side of the spine and follow the bones back. Up over the rib cage so that we don't go into the guts. Follow along. Now, this is where we get into the quartering side of things. So that's our one side of fish. These lateral bones, we want to take the whole lot out. So we run down those with a knife. We've still got the skin on. Now, salmon mackerel have scales, so if you want to eat it with the skin on, it does need to be scaled. Spanish mackerel doesn't, so you can, or tuna and other pelagics, so you can actually just slice it and then eat it skin on if that's what you prefer to do. Otherwise, what you can do, you have your quarter, you can slice those off, better off with your skinning knife. You can slice those off in a cutlet. And take that off the skin. So eventually you'll slice the entire fillet, skin gone, nice layer of cutlets. And they're lovely for light seasoning, maybe a little bit of flour and seasoning, just pan fried in butter, or you might want to batter and crumb those. Okay, couple of tips. If you do tend to do a fillet like this and it's a bit rough, you've left a fair bit of meat on the bone, you've got two options. You can either scallop that out, and still salvage it as a fish fillet, or you can leave the meat on there, you take your tail off, cut them into like a spare rib. So basically a little bit of flour and pepper and salt, take top and bottom off, throw them on the barbecue, and works a treat. Okay, last part of the process, we're going to take our filleted fish out of the nice salty brine water. We're going to bag it up. Now you could use wax paper, there's lots of different ways that you could do this, but we tend to use a bag. We put one fillet on top of the other, so that's enough to feed the family. We wrap that up, we put that into a dry tub, and it goes into the freezer. So whenever we're ready to have a feed of fish, we can take it out, drop it on the bench, the two fillets will unroll, and we can be frying those in 20 minutes. That's two basic ways to fillet fish. There's thousands of different ways. I've tried plenty, and there's different ways that I do it for different fish at different times and however we're gonna cook it. But that'll get you out of trouble. If you've never done it before and you wanna have a crack, by all means have a go and good luck.